Hello and welcome to my video blog. Today I want to show you only a couple of short tips and tricks to work with CrossVCL. Perhaps you might have the problem that some buttons haven't this text in this language that you are using. And here you see a German dialect with English text buttons, cancel and help. But you can fix this relatively easily. You select these buttons and select then as kind custom. That's all. And when you compile and run this program again, you will see this text is now in German as expected. Sometimes you may have the problem that in the running application some buttons have these background or transparent color, here in this case CL Fuchsia. You can fix this if you edit this button. And if you select this button, it really has to be for red and blue the value 255, and you are safe when you put in all borders the color. And if we save it and load it again and run the program, then we can see this button is here now okay. Another important thing that you should take into account is that you compile only to 64 bits when you compile for Linux or for Mac OS, and therefore if you, for example, your current Windows version is a 32-bit app, then something doesn't work under Linux and Mac OS. For example, if you misuse a tag variable from some objects to assign it to objects you use, then it wouldn't work if you use long int, and therefore you have to use int64, and you can test it what's the right version if you use the ifdef CPU x86. That means that would be in 32-bit app, and if it is not, it is a 64-bit app. So insofar it would be a good preparation to compile first your application also for Windows as a 64-bit version, because you will see that you can exclude programs or actions that you perhaps thought it was on the side of the CrossVCL framework, but in fact it was only 32 or 30-bit 64-bit problems. And you should also be aware, if you are searching for files and you are using a mask, on Windows you would use ** to find all files, and under Linux and Mac OS you would use only the * to get all the files you need. And here is other important information about the shell execute functionality. Since version 1.18 of CrossVCL, you can also execute applications, that means executable files, and before it was only possible to start documents or open folders or something like this. But here is now important, you should check in advance if the application you want to start is an application. You can check if it has the relevant attributes, if owner execute or group execute or other execute, and if this is a case, then it's also an application, and then you use an extra task to call the shell execute function. If you don't use an extra task, your application will hang and possibly crash. If it's not an executable, you can then start the file. It's a normal file then, and the system then will take over and checks for the right application and open then the file. And at the end of this short video, just the information that I've finished nearly my file manager program for the Linux version. You can it has more than 90% of the functionality that is there also on Windows. For example, I can have different views. Here I can have some columns, or I can use also the pictures that I can show, and in different sizes if needed. And it has also the FTP functionality. For example, I can connect me to my homepage here and can up or download files, or I can use it, for example, temporarily, and can set download and and open it. So all this function are there, also a zip placefunctionality and so on, and it's a great help for me because I can jump very fast to places I need. For example, I can jump to the PC server directory, and I can jump to the source on the Windows drive, and I can use also extra application to open the files that I can add here. I can use, for example, here gedit, of course. Let's just open on the other screen, or I can use my own text editor. That's here the case, so it's very useful. And here we have also a short look how it looks at the Mac OS. This is the current version here I've developed, and you see also this picture filter works, and you can see it in columns look or within details view, and also here the FTP selection works and so on. While the Linux version is ready, here is the Mac version on the current OS system. You see I have to fix smaller issues to have it not with a white background here, but I think it's only a few things I have to do, and then also the Mac version is ready.